What's up, guys? Carolina Jackpot coming at you March 27th, 2022. What a great day to talk some college football. It's Sunday. It's mildly warm here in the upstate of South Kakalaki. Breeze is blowing just a little bit. I think we're just a cunt hair over 60 degrees today. And I mowed grass for about 2 hours out here yesterday. And I don't know what it is this year, but I have gotten... Well, I have allergies anyway. They hit me every spring when the pollen starts to pollinating, starts coming down. And this year it's been extremely bad. And I sneezed for a solid hour yesterday. Took a couple of Benadryls, knocked me out for the whole evening. And we've quite honest with you, been feeling kind of groggy this afternoon. But now starting to feel better. And I said, what better time to come talk some Gamecocks football, drink a couple of beers with you guys, and just give you my perspective on this schedule, where I think we're going, what I'd like to see, what I don't want to see, what I hope to not see, and maybe some good things coming in the future. If you like what you see on the channel today, please hit it with a thumbs up. Please hit the subscribe button and click the bell. Carolina Jackpot is going to try his best to amp up the college football content in the coming months. I know we're still a few months away from college football season, and I'm not going to lie to you. I have been busier than a one-arm wallpaper hanger this winter. And coming in to the spring, I've been working out of town a lot. I had a bout with COVID that lasted about a week at the end of January, and I just have not had time to do the kind of things I want to do. You'll probably see me at night on the Rob and Kell show, and I look like I'm about to fall asleep. Well, it's because I am. I'm extremely tired at the end of the day, but I do want to get on here and knock this out. And while I'm getting to this point, the naysayers are going to tell you, oh, well, you're just doing this video right here because Uncle Lou's over on his channel doing them. No, I'm not. I actually put in on the Uncle Lou Patreon page that I'd like to see him do the breakdown of the South Carolina Gamecocks schedule as well. But I'm going to do it from a cock perspective. And he does it from an outside looking in perspective, from an SEC East rival perspective. They say they're not rivals with us, even though we all know that they are. But 2021 for South Carolina was sometimes very exciting, sometimes hard to watch. It was definitely a Jekyll and Hyde season. I would say that it was a success for first-year coach Shane Beamer. He won 6 regular season games when a lot of pundits were predicting him to get team to win 3-4 games, hell, maybe 2 games. So it was a success record-wise. Now, a couple of teams that you beat, I think were kind of questionable. Those being Florida and Auburn. I don't know what happened to those teams in the games against the Gamecocks. I inherently think that both those teams were a little more talented than the Gamecocks were. However, we were able to get the job done against them, and a lot of that had to do with poor coaching on the Auburn and the Florida sides, respectively. Poor execution on the Florida side, especially. But there were a couple of games in there also that you could throw in on the South Carolina side, most notably to me, the Missouri game and the Kentucky game that I think had South Carolina hit a big play here or there, the tide could have turned and South Carolina could have easily won those ball games. So the 6-6 could have gone either way. I happen to like where we landed. I think wins over Florida and Auburn is more impressive than wins over Kentucky and Missouri. I'm just being real. No disrespect to Kentucky. I know that you've had a program that's been on the come up in the past 4 or 5 years, but still, you beat Kentucky. To me, still does not hold as much weight as you beat Auburn. And it's just all in name value and in name recognition. And it's going to take you a long time to get to that level. You may never get to that level, sadly. Let's look at 2022, going in, coming off of a bowl win over the North Carolina Tar Heels. What was it, 45-31, 38-21 in the Duke's Mayonnaise Bowl. South Carolina had tons of players with COVID tested positive, couldn't play in the game, had a couple of guys opt out of the game, because, doing that, staying out of that Duke's Mayo game was going to really help their NFL draft stockability a lot. But still was able to get the job done. South Carolina clearly the better team than North Carolina that day. I don't know if they had played a month earlier or, hypothetically a month later, if that would have been the case. But it was definitely the case that day. And that certainly gives you a good foundation to build on. Certainly some playmakers emerged in that ball game that you possibly could lean on going into 2022 that I'm not sure that you knew that you had during most of 2021. Looking at the slate, 12 games, and it's kind of, some of these games have been shuffled around a little bit, so some things may look just a tad different than what they usually do. Gamecocks open up on September 3rd with Georgia State at home. This will be the first time the Gamecocks and the Panthers have ever met on the football field. Of course, Georgia State is coached by former Gamecock offensive line coach Sean Elliott. Notable as Sean Elliott served as the interim coach in the 2015 season for about the last 6-7 games of the season, I believe it was, when Steve Spurrier decided that he'd had enough of coaching the college game and he quit after the loss to LSU. This is a dangerous spot for South Carolina to start off with. I'm not going to lie to you. Georgia State, for what they are, out of the big, I'm drawing a blank. Where do they play? They play in the conference with App State. Sun Belt. Out of the Sun Belt Conference, started out with pretty rough last year, and finally finished up, I think, with bowl eligibility. I can't remember right offhand if they won their bowl game or not, but they look better down the stretch. I think they beat Coastal Carolina last year. Either they pushed them. At any rate, Sean Elliott, I think, is a good coach. If not a good X's and O's guy, he's definitely a damn good motivator. He was on the short list of candidates for the job after the season in 2015, and it was time to get down to the nitty-gritty of hiring a coach. A coaching search, which I think was an absolute abject failure. And earlier on in Ray Tanner's tenure as athletic director at South Carolina should have shown you that he was unable to land a solid hire, and that this guy was never going to be able to get his first choice. The job ultimately wasn't given to Sean Elliott. I don't think that the brass looked on very favorably because he had lost 2 weeks earlier to the Citadel. And nobody wanted to even look at the fact that his team pushed number one Clemson into the fourth quarter in the game the week after. So I think that he's going to come in here with a chip on his shoulder. I really do, and with good reason. I wasn't in the camp of hire Sean Elliott for coach after 2015. I'm just not going to lie to you. I wasn't, but after I saw what Will Muschamp was capable of, I was definitely in the camp of, God dang, why didn't we give Sean Elliott a shot? So he's going to come in with a chip on his shoulder. His team's going to come in with a chip on his shoulder. And I think that they'll push South Carolina for a half, but I ultimately think South Carolina will win this ball game. This will be Spencer Rattler's first time out as a Gamecock. And when we're talking about that too, let's not act like there's not quarterback competition down there going on. Because there is quarterback competition going on, I'm sure, that Luke Dodie doesn't just want to be written off as someone who's going to be moved to slot receiver and will never see time behind center again. I don't think the young man was ever properly coached. I don't ever think he was ever properly developed. under Will Muschamp's regime. And then last year, I mean, hell, we never really had a chance to know what he could do because somebody decided to step on his foot the first day of practice. Now, I know it was an accident, but this is just the kind of shit that seems to happen to South Carolina all the time. Hopefully, we got a little bit more discipline in the program now. We got a little bit more, we're just paying a little bit more damn attention to what we're doing, and stupid stuff like that's not going to happen anymore. But Luke Dodie, he's there and been in this quarterback room for a couple of years, been a starter, good athlete, decent arm. Like I said, don't think that he's ever really been developed properly. He's healed up now. Maybe this is the time he does it. Freshman coming in, Brayden Davis from Connecticut. This kid, Connecticut, is that where he's from? I don't know. He might be from Maryland. He's from one of those places up there where it's cold in the winter and a little bit less hot here in the summer. But he's this kid, four-star athlete, really good arm himself, probably comes in pretty raw. I don't see him having a lot of playing time in year one, but it's possible that he could pick the scheme up really quick and they could roll with him. And then let's not forget, Dak Joyner showed out in the Mayo Bowl game against UNC. I loved that. That was probably top 10 in one of my favorite games, Gamecock-wise. Not in terms of what the win did for the program, because to be honest, I don't think it did a whole hell of a lot for us, other than maybe give them some confidence. But just the story behind that of how many years he's been here. He was never used properly by Will Muschamp. That seems to be a recurring theme, doesn't it? Never used properly under Will Muschamp. Never developed under Will Muschamp. I mean, his staff and him sucked ass at those aspects of the game. So, that was really exciting to me to see what he did in that game, with what was it, like a 10 for 10 passing performance, a couple of long touchdown passes. He just showed out in that game, and I'm glad to see that he's coming back for another year with the Gamecocks. He's been around the program since 2018. And took a redshirt year, and he's just been through the ringer. He's had some ups, he's had plenty of downs, and I'm glad to see him back again. I really like Dak Joyner as an athlete, and I think South Carolina will pull away and win this game in the second half. Next two games, pretty tough stretch. On the road at Arkansas, September 10th. Don't know whether this one will be in Fayetteville or Little Cock. I think that they have decided to play maybe like only one game a year in that old stadium in Little Cock, and the rest of them are being played in Fayetteville. But South Carolina hadn't had the best of luck when they go to Arkansas. Now, Arkansas used to be the permanent cross-division rival for South Carolina until Texas A&M joined the SEC. So we were quite familiar with each other then. And Arkansas had some good teams in the late 2000s, or late 2000s, from like 2006, 7 to like 2011-ish. Arkansas was pretty good. And they fell off a lot, and have just recently bounced back into national relevance. Sam Pittman has just done an amazing job at Arkansas of just revitalizing and rejuvenating that program when he took over it from former Clemson offensive coordinator Chad Morris, who had been head coach at Arkansas and just absolutely just drove the program into the ground. That's going to be a tough game for South Carolina, not a good spot. Now, you come away from that one with a win. That's a huge feather in the cap of the program, because Arkansas is a team that I look at, as far as this rebuilding thing, I look at as being about 2 years ahead of where South Carolina's at. And to be frank, they were below where South Carolina's at right now when when Pittman got there. So he really brought them a long way in 2 years. It'll be interesting to see what happens there, but that's a tough game for the Gamecocks. Next week at home, another tough game for South Carolina. Got defending national champion Georgia coming into Williams-Brice. South Carolina has knocked Georgia off in the past when Georgia was very highly regarded. Never played them like, coming off of a national championship. That's been a long time since that's happened, and South Carolina hasn't played them in that position. Who knows what to expect here? I mean, I don't expect to win this game. I'd like for South Carolina to be competitive here and, maybe push Georgia into the second half in this game. But, I mean, let's just be real. I don't think that you stand a real good chance of winning. Still return a lot of starters off of last year's team, still return a lot of talent off last year's team, and have been recruiting at an insane level for the past 4 or 5 years. Georgia at home, coming off of Arkansas on the road, that's going to be tough for South Carolina. That'll be a big home game for the Gamecocks, probably the biggest one we've had in a couple of years, probably since... probably since like that 2019 game against Alabama. So Georgia coming into Willie B should be a good one. Charlotte at home the next week. Charlotte and the Gamecocks hook up on a gridiron for the first time ever as well. Charlotte's got one of those younger up-and-coming coaches. This Charlotte, another team out of the Sun Belt, right? No, they're in Conference USA. Will Healy. And they actually knocked off a Power 5 program last year in Duke, albeit one of the worst Power 5 programs out there, but they did knock them off. Will Healy was one of these guys, he's regarded in coaching circles, he was given the nickname of Young Dabo or Little Dabo or something a few years ago. Started off red hot last year, but really fell off down the stretch. They played some bad ball going into the latter part of the season. I remember I had them covering the spread in a game in late October when I was on vacation at the beach against Florida Atlantic and at home, and they just absolutely got taken to the woodshed by Florida Atlantic. So I think South Carolina wins this game much more comfortably than the game against Georgia State. South Carolina State at home the next week. The two teams really just don't belong on the field together. South Carolina is going to destroy South Carolina State and have their way with them in that game. Kentucky on the road the next week. Now, we're going to get into a stretch of a few games here. I'm talking about games that you have to start winning these games eventually. This is a game here. South Carolina has got to start winning some games against Kentucky if you're ever going to be a successful football program as you aspire to be, as I think that you are capable of being. Kentucky, talent-wise, on par with South Carolina, I would say. However, Mark Stoops is a coach that really gets a lot out of his players, probably gets more out of his players than most coaches out there would. And he's got a lot of them coming back again this year. You're going to see some of the same names you've been hearing for years there. DeAndre Square, Cavassier Smoke, Chris Rodriguez. All these guys are coming back for Kentucky again. The playmakers, the Will Levis, the transfer from Penn State, guy with the big arm that we were told was going to throw for 400 yards a game last year. He didn't exactly do that, but he did okay. They had a nice bowl win. What was it? Capital One Bowl, Outback Bowl. One of those. I got them mixed up. South Carolina been to both of them and won them both a bunch of times, so I can't remember. I think it was the Capital One Bowl. Knocked off Iowa in that one, so that was a big win for Kentucky's program. And they'll be back. The South Carolina's got to start winning these games. It being on the road, that's a challenging spot. However, I mean, this is not the most difficult venue in the SEC to play a football game in, but one that South Carolina has definitely had problems in over the years. At one time, South Carolina had won, I want to say it was like 10 games in a row over Kentucky. And then they go up the week after they knocked off number 1 Alabama back in 2010. They lost to a terrible Kentucky team in Lexington, which was coached at the time by Joker Phillips. If any of you guys remember that bum, South Carolina lost to him. And subsequently after that, I mean, it's been, South Carolina had a really good team in 2012. Kentucky was terrible. You went up there, barely won. Even prior to that, back in the 2000s, when South Carolina had some decent teams with winning records, Kentucky had some awful teams. South Carolina would go up there and barely escape. And of late, South Carolina has not won in Kentucky since 2012, that aforementioned game. So, snapped the string in 2019 against Kentucky at home. I had lost 5 in a row, but we were told it wasn't because we didn't have our quarterback, whatever that guy's name was. It was playing wide receiver that they put in as quarterback that they swore up and down was God's gift to football, and they would have beaten us 100-0 had he been playing in that game at the quarterback position. I'll think of his name later on in the video. At any rate, South Carolina's got to start beating Kentucky. I don't know if this season is when you start doing it. It is a road game and always, a problem. Then you get an off week, and South Carolina comes home to take on Texas A&M on 10-22-22. Another one that South Carolina needs to start being able to beat. South Carolina needs to beat Texas A&M at some point. You have not beaten them since they came into the SEC. What are you, 0-7 against them? Lost to them 2014 in the season opener, and just have absolutely, have been a lot of games that just haven't been very competitive. The past 2 years have been absolute bloodbaths against Texas A&M, and there's just no damn reason for it. This year, though, I don't see you snapping that string really from here. And once again, I'm not making any official predictions on these games right now, but just from the outside, looking out into the future, I mean, they've been recruiting at a really high level. I think Jimbo Fisher is kind of under a little bit of scrutiny right now. And those boosters are wanting to start, competing for an SEC championship. They're wanting, you knocked off Alabama, but you couldn't do the other things to get the job done last year to get to the SEC championship game. And, they're wondering, this is NIL money we're forking out here, this, all this and that. When are you going to start delivering the goods? Maybe it's this year. I don't know. That's going to be a tough spot for South Carolina coming up on 10-22-22. Then you get Missouri at home. This is another game that South Carolina, they got to win this one. Last year's Missouri team was absolutely horrible defensively, especially for the first half of the year up front. Teams were running through them like shit through a screen door. I mean, they were just absolutely trashing Missouri's defensive line, their linebackers. And then South Carolina plays them, and it just looked like a brand new team after South Carolina had went out and embarrassed Florida the week before. Missouri ultimately ended up even going to a bowl game last year. And, this is not a spot where you need to go in and catch an L. Defensively, I really don't know what Missouri's going to have this year. I do know they are bringing in probably the highest rated recruit that they've ever had. Honestly, Luther Burton is a 5-star wide receiver from the St. Louis area, I believe. Only question about that is, who's going to throw him the ball? The kid Connor Bedazzled Sack, one that I kind of fell in love with a season or two ago, he just, I don't know, the guy just totally did a 180 and just turned into a big bag of crap last year and is gone. He's hit the transfer portal. Had a couple of freshmen in there last year, splitting some time together. Of course, they both looked good against South Carolina, but neither one of them real impressive. There is rumor that JT Daniels may be flirting with transferring to Missouri now. If that happens and hooking up with this Burton kid, Mizzou could be dangerous through the air. Mizzou could be dangerous. So still, this is a team that you've got to beat at home. South Carolina's got to be consistently better than Missouri if we're ever going to rise above where we're at right now in the eastern side of the SEC. Then you got a home game a road game, against Vanderbilt the next week. South Carolina has not lost to Vanderbilt since 2008. I don't foresee that happening again this year. South Carolina played a very, very uninspired 3 quarters of football last year after taking a early lead against Vanderbilt. Let them come back, lead for most of the second half, and then it took the grad assistant Zeb Noland off the bench to throw a touchdown pass in the waning moments of that game to pull out a victory over Vandy. Guys, that was, and to be fair, Vanderbilt doesn't just go out there and purposely lose football games. It's not like they just wake up every damn morning and say, hey, we're going to go out here and fucking be bad at football today. They recruit a different type player than a South Carolina does, than an LSU does, than a Florida does. They have different academic standards, higher academic standards. Henceforth, it's harder for them to get elite level athletes. Time to time, they will push teams and they will compete and win some of these games when they have the right mixture of coaching and I don't want to say talent, but guys that are able to be coached up above their ceiling, as they have been in the past, especially like under James Franklin and in some of the years by Derek Mason. Vandy can even make a bowl game. But I don't foresee this much grabbing a bowl game out of it. They did play better down the stretch last year after the game against South Carolina. They didn't play bad against Tennessee, didn't especially play bad against Kentucky or Missouri, either one. In fact, they could have beaten Missouri. So, a game I expect South Carolina to win, but nothing is for certain and could still possibly be a dangerous spot. The law of averages says you're going to lose to them at some point. Don't let it be this year. Just don't let it be any time during my lifetime. I don't want to live it down. But I've lived through worse, so I think I'd probably survive. Anyway, you go to Florida the next week, and this Florida will be looking for revenge here in this game. How are they going to come out and look this year under Billy Napier? I don't know. I think this is one of the biggest question marks in the SEC. I think they'll be a well-coached team. I think they're a little bit void of talent right now at some certain spots on the field. But I do think that overall, talent-wise, they're probably still a little bit better than the Gamecocks. At the quarterback position, I definitely don't think they are. And that could be kind of problematic for them. I think they got a transfer in there from Ohio State. Anthony Richardson comes back. Emory Jones, he transferred out, right? And then I heard later on, he's decided to transfer like 3 months later. And I'm like, what the fuck? I thought he already transferred. So I had to go back and look at the backstory. And apparently, Billy Napier convinced him not to transfer. So then he went on ahead and did it anyway. At first, I don't know, didn't get positioned the way he wanted to in spring. Really not sure about that. But I mean, why didn't you just let the guy go to begin with? He could have gotten a leg up and gotten in somewhere else. I think he's going to go to UCF, if I'm not mistaken. Anyway, Emory Jones gone. South Carolina just absolutely destroyed Florida last year. Florida was like an 18-point favorite over South Carolina going into that game, and it was coming off that Texas A&M game, and they had every right to think that would happen. Even though Florida had gotten embarrassed, I believe it was by LSU the week before, or maybe it may have been Georgia. I'm not sure. Timeline-wise, I'm not exactly looking at that, but there's no way that they were 18 points better than South Carolina, even though I can see people thinking why they would be. South Carolina totally embarrassed them last year, and it could have been, let me tell you, it could have been way, way worse than what it was. South Carolina put it up on the shelf in the second half, and in fact, for a minute there, I was wondering, are they going to let these motherfuckers come back? But they didn't. It was like 40-17. We ended up winning that game. But Yeah, they could have scored 60-something points on them had they continued that torrid pace coming out of the locker room. Team just came out of nowhere. This year, they'll be looking for revenge. I think Florida will be a better, well-coached, more disciplined team, not necessarily more talented. This will be an interesting game. I can't offer a prediction on it right now, just to tell you the truth. They got Tennessee coming to South Carolina on November 19th. Now, this Tennessee game is interesting. This thing has been bounced around like a ping pong ball, this game has, as far as on the schedule. Now, 2 years ago during the COVID year, they put it in game one. It's normally in like that second third of the schedule there in like mid to late October. And this year, you find it here in the second to last game of the year at home. And this, and it pains me to say it, as much shit as I give Tennessee fans and as much crap as I like to talk about them, I think that Josh Heupel did a really, really good job there in year one. With what he had coming off of the McDonald's bag stuffing scheme, the shitty Jeremy Pruitt regime there at Tennessee, really, they were like, if they had finished up 0-8 in the SEC last year, I don't think anyone would have saw it as a huge surprise. I really don't, because they were like really just had been just like seemed like it they would just be beaten down from a mental standpoint. But about 3 or 4 games into the season, they settled on Hendon Hooker as quarterback. He played really good, and in several games against Ole Miss, they played Alabama really tight too, even into the beginning of the fourth quarter, and eventually faded away. And they could have won 2 more games, and Tennessee could have easily been in contention for a New Year's Day bowl. They're definitely on the come up, and I hate to say it, but to me, when things shake out this, when the magazines start rolling off the presses, I expect them to be picked to finish second in the SEC East behind Georgia. Not necessarily because they may not end up there, that they may not be the best team to put at number 2, but right now there's no other choice. They perform the best out of any of these other teams that you look at in the SEC East that's left. They performed the best outside of Georgia, to me. Now, you can make the argument for Kentucky, I guess, and maybe I speak a little too soon there. Maybe it'll be Kentucky that they put there at number 2 behind Georgia. But I think that Tennessee, just offensively, I think they just have more firepower than what Kentucky does. I think Kentucky's better defensively, and I think better along the lines of scrimmage. But we're in an offensive age of football. They are in an offensive age of football. I believe that if it were me and I were a betting man right now, I would put them behind Georgia at second going into the season in the SEC East, and probably put Kentucky at number 3. But that's just me. This will be a tough game for South Carolina, but it's another one you've got to win. It's a game you've got to win. It's not going to be as tough as the Texas A&M game. Sorry, Tennessee. I think Texas A&M is better than you, but it's going to be tough. That's all I'm going to say about it. I'm not going to give an official prediction on that one right now, but just judging based on last year's appearance, or last year's performance and last year's appearance against Tennessee, you had a hard time keeping up. And we definitely don't want to see a repeat of that one at all. And then, of course, the last game of the season, you got Clemson on the road. Why do I keep messing this up? Clemson's on the road on November 26th. Now, this is a game that, last year, if any game that made me the maddest, it was this game, and probably that game against Texas A&M. There was just no excuse whatsoever for the performance that South Carolina put up last year against Clemson. Hey, I realize they're a talented team, okay? They got talent on both sides of the ball. I get it. But the perception is they were coming into the game, they were a down team. They were down from last year. They were down from the national championship level teams. The ukulele had struggled. The blah, 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 the blah, blah, blah. And, I mean, you went in there and you didn't play fired up, not in my opinion. You didn't play with a lot of heart, a lot of desire, passion, but you did. Everybody said, well, they kept fighting until the end. Well, I mean, that's great. Why didn't you fight in the first fucking quarter? You know, why didn't you bring down Will Shipley in the fucking backfield instead of trying to tackle him by the damn shoestrings and letting little shit break loose for 15 yards on you? So, you know, they've got to play better in that game. Going to Clemson this year and winning after you've lost all these games in a row, that's going to be a tough task. I'm not necessarily, by any means or any stretch of the imagination, predicting that to happen. It's a bad spot. It's a bad spot to be in. Losing this many in a row in a rivalry game and then having to go on the road and face them in a team that I think that they'll probably be a little bit better than they were last year. But you've got to start making these games more competitive. You have got to start making this game a focal point again. You've got to make this game relevant on a national level again. I remember from 2011 to 2013, 14 or so, this game was actually relevant on a national level. Right now, it's not relevant on a national level. And you've got to do that again. You've got to do your part to make that relevant on a national level. Shane Beamer and staff have got to do their part to make that game relevant on a national level. The Taters have already done their part. They've already done their part to make it relevant on a national level because they're in it and they're, an elite team. Say what you want. I know last year was a misnomer, and I don't know. I think it was probably, unfortunately, a one-off. I don't think that they've fallen that far, though I hope they have. I think that that was a one-off, and I think they'll be improved this year. So going up there, I don't see that one ending well, but you've got to play better. You've got to play better. You've got to keep it competitive. You've got to push that game into the second half and possibly into the fourth quarter before it's decided. So, looking at this schedule, it's not an impossible schedule. Arkansas from the West is a middle of the pack team in the SEC West. Texas A&M is probably one notch ahead of them, I would say, in the SEC West, or possibly by that point of the season, maybe one notch behind them. Who knows? But they're both tough teams. I would have much rather had Mississippi State as a draw from the SEC West this year instead of them. But it is what it is. I think the non-conference slate is very manageable. Don't stub your toe in that first game of the season. Don't do like somebody else at the SEC East does and lose to Georgia State in your opening game at home. And then the SEC East schedule is what it is. Those games are sprinkled around there throughout the thing. The game against Tennessee, don't really like where it's placed at on the schedule just because of the fact that I really want to beat Tennessee. I want to beat their ass. And I don't like the fact that it comes off of a road game against Florida and before a game against Clemson. I think that it needs to have your full attention. It needs to have your full-on attention. I would rather beat Tennessee and then go to Clemson and get blown out than to lose to Tennessee and then go to Clemson and lose competitively. That's just me. I would rather the Tennessee game come where the Vanderbilt game is and those two be flip-flopped, but I don't make the schedule out. I just look at it and bitch about it. So that's about all I got to say about all this. And hey, y'all, I told y'all I'd be back around here again. Clemson Craig, Carolina Jackpot Coop Potts, cousin. Boy ain't right. That boy ain't right. What the hell? I tell you this, he sounded a little bit more like he slept off that 3-day drunk on this video he done when he called us elite. He called us elite I tell you, when he said that right there, he wasn't doing nothing but spitting straight facts on that, son. We are elite. I went to a baseball game. When I went down there they called it the Battle on Bull Street, and the Gamecocks, the Coots played my Tigers in that game, and I went to that thing, and you know, they thought they was gonna do something. Man, God damn, man, that is embarrassing. They are just laughing stock, you know. At the minor league ballpark in their own city, their own dirty ass nasty place. I had to get me another COVID booster after I left that place. Had to go get me another one after I left that place, cause it's in Columbia. But man, they all sitting here, you know, and talking this and talking that. But then he did say that Clemson is elite in football, and last year was a one-off, and that's exactly what it was. It was a one-off. Like, they talking about that law of averages. Law of averages says we're gonna be down. We can't keep it up. You know, it's hard for Dabo to keep up every year like he keeps up, like he been doing since 2014. Shit, I mean, he just can't do it every year. He's a human, you know. Even though he don't look like one, he looked like a superhero machine. But he's still human, and DJ was human. He's young. I'm going to tell you what, that boy right there, they a list about that short right there for the Heisman Trophy, and his name's right about there on it this year. Boy done lost some weight. Boy got an arm like a howitzer. He going to be good. He going to be good. We're going to be hell this year again. So we rolling in there undefeated. Well, smack them Coots. What's he talking about? Push us to the fourth quarter. What you talking about? You don't push yourself to the fourth quarter. You might have to push yourself to the fourth quarter just to make it. I think this coming year, I think this one probably gonna be about like that first year Moose Dump come up to Clemson and lost, what was it, 56-7. Man, Dabo could have put 167 on the scoreboard if he'd have wanted to in that game. Man, I felt sorry for that poor boy. Well, no, I didn't. I didn't feel sorry for him. He was a coot, but that Muschamp boy, that Moose Dump, he wasn't worth a damn. Y'all let him. Why y'all let him coach y'all football program so long? Man, God dang, boy, I'd be embarrassed if I was a coot. I would never be one, so I don't know. I don't know what to say about it, but shit. Let me get this fool back over here to talk for a little bit longer so he can finish up his stupid video. I don't know how you can go through life being so negative, but he knows how to do it, and he's still here, still alive and kicking. But anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed that preview of the South Carolina Gamecocks 2022 college football schedule. It's a tough slate, but you know, with the players we got coming back, with what we got out of the transfer portal, I'm interested to see what South Carolina does in the challenging SEC East this year. I'll see you guys later. Appreciate you watching. Peace, and I'm out. Go Gamecocks, and go Coach Beamer. Woo!